Dr. Kylie Dodsworth, and we're going to talk about sleep today. So sleep is really important. We certainly know if we don't sleep, we don't survive. And sleep deprivation is often used as a form of torture because it's literally torturous not to sleep. And it makes us all go a little bit mad. So getting enough sleep is really important, but not just for those reasons, but because of all of the things that happen when we're asleep. So when we go to sleep, our immune system actually starts to work and does surveillance of our body so that it's finding any abnormal cells like precancerous cells, it's looking for signs of infection, it's checking everything out. Our memories are being processed when we're sleeping. So our unconscious or subconscious is actually working through events of the day and situations and scenarios and allowing us to decide, well, what information do we keep? And what information do we let go? So we do this thing called pruning of our little neurons or brain connections when we're asleep. So if we don't do that, we can't lay down memories properly, we can't retain information properly. So sleep's really important for that. Sleep allows for rest, of course, and restoration of the body as well. So there's a range of really important functions that happen with sleep. And as far as getting enough sleep, people always go, well, how much is enough? It can vary from person to person, but in essence, what we want to be doing is making sure that we have at least 3 or 4 full cycles of sleep per night. Now, what do I mean by cycles of sleep? Well, what happens is there are stages of sleep where we have a sleep onset phase, and then we go into a different brain wave of activity, and we go down to stage 1 sleep, stage 2, 3, 4 is the deepest stage of sleep, and back out again. And then in between times we go into REM or rapid eye movement sleep. And then we go down into another cycle and back up again. Now, each one of those cycles takes around about an hour and a half. So if you're going to be doing at least 3 or 4 cycles, you can see that we need to be allowing for a good 7 or 8 hours of sleep to happen. So in essence, we want people to be aiming for 7 or 8 hours of decent sleep. So the timing of the sleep is actually quite important too. We seem to get our most restorative sleep, as in restoring and recovering type sleep, between the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So going to bed really late, even if you might sleep in a little bit further, it's not necessarily the same quality of sleep. So just be mindful of that, and when you have control over that aspect of life, as in you're not doing shift work or whatever, then aiming to get to bed around 10 o'clock is a good idea. So the timing of the sleep is really important. If we're not sleeping properly, you have to ask again, why is the body not creating this cycle that's so important? And one of the main indicators or key controllers of sleep is a hormone called melatonin. Now, we make melatonin in part of our brain called the pineal gland. And the pineal gland senses daylight and darkness. And it gets disrupted in its rhythms when we do things like international travel and we get different time zones, or if we switch from a day shift to a night shift, the rhythm of the body gets disturbed. So daylight hours and nighttime hours impacts on the way we actually release our melatonin. Now, interestingly, melatonin is also linked strongly with another hormone in our body, and it's our cortisol. So cortisol is our stress hormone. So through the day, we should have a nice amount of cortisol in the morning to be able to get up with the day, focus on what we need to do, get going. The cortisol then comes down a little bit around lunchtime, down again in the afternoon, and then there's a fall in cortisol at night time that triggers the release of the melatonin. So if we're not getting a nice fall of cortisol because we're already really fatigued, the adrenals aren't producing good cortisol, we're kind of flat in those levels, we're not triggering the melatonin to be released. Or if we're busy in the day and we get home and we get on the computer and we do all this activity at night time, our cortisol still being pumped out of our body and quite high, rather than naturally falling away as we relax into the evening. So too much cortisol, you're not getting a fall down. Too little cortisol, you're not getting a noticeable drop. Both aspects of that can affect the way the melatonin is released. And if you don't release a good amount of melatonin, then also you don't get a fall in melatonin in the morning, which is the next trigger for the cortisol to come up. So these two are triggering for each other. And if you get out of balance, you can get both aspects of that being out of balance. We get caught in a bit of a cycle. So we need normal healthy cortisol, recovery in the evening, triggering melatonin to then get the sleep cycling to start to happen. Melatonin in its own right is a really powerful antioxidant, and that's an antioxidant will protect our body from what we call oxidation, which is aging and damage. So melatonin is really important for antioxidant, as well as signaling the sleep cycles, which gets the immune system to do the surveilling and cleaning up in our body, the memory setting, all of those things that we need to have happen. So good healthy melatonin is really important. If we're not sleeping, you can actually do things to help produce your melatonin. Interestingly, this comes back to your phones and things as well. The UV light is the daylight spectrum, and the ultra infrared light is the nighttime spectrum. So when we've got the blue screens, they're more of a UV light, whereas candlelight, firelight, they're in the infrared spectrum. So that's why if you're in front of a fire at night time, we often get sleepy and want to go to sleep. We can mimic that if you haven't got a fire by literally lighting a candle in the evening when you're ready for bed. Sit quietly, might be the perfect time for a little meditation, but even so, just sitting there for a few minutes watching the flame burn and just breathing and relaxing can start to naturally release your melatonin. So getting rid of the blue light, bringing on the candle light, dimming the lights in the room, turning the lights down or off, all of those things can be a natural trigger for your melatonin. If you're someone who has been busy in the evening or you're just fairly anxious as a person, we want to also bring on our calming type brain chemicals, so things like GABA. And you can take GABA if you need to, but we want to just do the calming and the relaxing more so if we want, if we can. So we want to get the relaxing hormones to kick in. We want to get the busy brain hormones to quieten down. We want to get the melatonin to release so that we can get the good sleep cycles happening. So have a think about each one of those aspects for sleep. Try to get to sleep around the 10 o'clock time. Try to have the relaxation in the evening with the dim lights or the candle light. Look at having good healthy levels of relaxation happening in the evenings. Try and get your cycling of cortisol, stress hormone, melatonin hormones to work in balance, and see what you can do to try and get the best sleep your body can have for rejuvenation. If you wake up through the night, then going into a state of relaxation through some meditation can help the body to fall back to sleep again, doing the candlelight again, maybe some herbal teas like chamomile. You can look at things that you can do naturally. Lavender can help sometimes. A bit of lavender inside the pillowcase can be helpful. So there's a few tips and tricks that you can try. But whatever you do, sleep is really important. So if you're not sleeping properly, chase that down. Find out what it is you need to do to get that sleep happening, because it's absolutely vital for your health. So don't stop until you've sorted that out, aiming for good restorative sleep. So if you've got any questions for me, you can find me at the website. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you next time. I'm Dr. Kylie Dodsworth. Bye for now.